Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD, pro physique athlete. Today I'm going to be giving you 10 harsh truths about being a natural bodybuilder. As you guys know, I had a crazy season this year as a men's physique athlete. I won my WNBF pro card, competed in my first pro show, and ended up competing in Worlds in LA. Seeing the level of competition on the world stage really made me see how far I've come, but also reminded me of some harsh truths about staying natural that we're going to be talking about today. These are things that I didn't necessarily know when I started out. And we're going to be busting a lot of common misconceptions people have about natural bodybuilding. If you want to maximize your gains as a natural, this video is for you. Lesson number 1, and these are in no particular order, is that muscle growth takes time, especially when you're natural. Seeing the first results from your workout program will take months. And I think this is the first obstacle that actually stops people. They never stick around long enough to see the first results from the training. And thus they never get that positive reinforcement to keep them going. If you're watching this and you've just started training, keep going because you're not going to see the first results for at least a few months. Trust me, once you start to see the changes in your body, you're going to be a lot more motivated to continue. Now, the other aspect of this is that it does take years to really transform your physique. Expect that it'll take at least 5 to 10 years to really see a transformation. I myself have been training for 10 years seriously at this point, and I'm still seeing progress. Okay, harsh truth number 2 about staying natural is that you probably won't look as good as your favorite fitness influencer. Now, there are a few components of this. The first part is that they're probably on performance enhancing drugs. These really do make a big difference in bodybuilding. And once you start bringing PEDs into the mix, you're really just talking about different physiology and it becomes a different sport in general. A lot of your success actually depends on how well you respond to the drugs and how much you're able to tolerate. Another point to keep in mind is that a lot of influencers have professional photographers and really know how to work their editing and camera angles. So what you see online may not necessarily be representative of what they actually look like in person. And the third part of this actually ties into my next point, which is number 3, and that is that you might be limited by genetics in the long haul. This is one that a lot of people get wrong though. There probably is a maximum potential amount of muscle that you're able to put on as a natural. Some of this will be determined by genetics, and your aesthetics will also be affected by your natural bone structure. But what people get wrong is that they end up giving up too soon because they blame their genetics, and this is why I put an asterisk on this point. You should never use genetics as an excuse to give up. First of all, you may have a lot more natural potential than you actually think. How you look right now in part is due to genetics, but you don't know what you're gonna look like if you continue carrying on the journey with dedication for years on end. Some people may start off skinny, but may end up being able to put on a lot of muscle later on. That is, they may genetically be good responders to training and diet. And I really want you to think about bodybuilding as a game of progress. That is, you should be measuring your success against your prior self and not by comparing to other people. This was something that was a harsh realization for me when I got to Worlds, and I saw that at a world championship level, it really does come down to genetics in large part. That is, some of the guys just naturally had very wide shoulders and very narrow waists. That being said, I've come a lot farther than I ever thought I would, and I know I'm still making progress, so there's still lots of gains for Dr. Swole in the future. Number 4, if you want to maximize your gains as a natural bodybuilder, you will need consistent hard work. As I've emphasized, bodybuilding is a long journey, and the major driver of hypertrophy after consistency and sustainability is progressive overload. You really need to be focusing on incrementally getting stronger or doing more reps over time to really see results. To achieve this, you really need to focus on putting in good workouts week in, week out, year round. That's not to say you can't take a couple of weeks off a year, and perhaps you will have some blips in your training, diet, or recovery, but the important thing is that you get right back in the saddle and continue on your journey without letting it derail you. You're not going to get very far if you train a couple months and then take a few months off. The key to getting around this is to make fitness part of your habits. That is, make it part of your weekly routine to go to the gym right after work, however many days a week you're training, and having consistency with your diet, which leads into our next point. And that is, you will need to have some discipline with eating. I will clarify this and say that for natural bodybuilding, it actually isn't that hard to optimize your nutrition more or less. The main players are going to be hitting your total daily calories, spreading your protein over about 4 to 6 meals per day, and gaining or losing weight at the correct rate. So I'll note that this actually isn't that hard to achieve, and you still can eat out and have a social life while still getting jacked. But you will want to make sure you're getting in enough protein, and having some ability to eyeball your macros will be useful. And in terms of weight gain, I do recommend lean bulking. That is, you want to gain weight at the slowest rate that allows you to maximize muscle growth while minimizing the additional fat you put on. So keep in mind that just because you're a bodybuilder in a bulking phase doesn't mean you can just go all out with junk food and put on a whole bunch of fat. You can have treats in moderation, but you will want to have some discipline with that. Okay, harsh truth number 6 is that you won't be able to stay shredded year round as a natural bodybuilder. When I was prepping for my shows, I got really lean, probably around 5 to 6% body fat. And there came a point when people would come up to me in the gym and ask how I got so lean. And I would always answer, you don't want to be this lean. There is a level of body fat that once you go below, you start reaching unhealthy levels. For men, this happens usually around 10%, and for women around 15%. Once you go below this, your body's hormones start getting disrupted. Things like testosterone or thyroid hormone. So while I was that lean, I actually felt terrible. I had low mood, low energy, and just didn't enjoy a lot of the things that I normally would. Now the thing is, you will see a lot of your favorite influencers on Instagram looking shredded all the time. Part of this will come from the fact that they are using performance enhancing drugs. Some of it will come from their genetics. That is, some people just are able to hang out at low body fat percentages year round. But some of it will also come from the smoke and mirrors part of being an influencer. That is, what bodybuilders will do is they'll get really shredded for a show or a photo shoot, and then they'll get a bunch of photos at that time when they're super shredded, and then drip feed them out throughout the year on Instagram, giving you the illusion that they're always super lean. And even if you really did want to look that lean all the time, it probably isn't going to be good for you. The hormone disruption is going to be unhealthy for you. And when you're at a really low body fat percentage, your training performance will suffer. And this means you're not going to be able to build muscle as you otherwise would. So I don't want you to pedestalize being super shredded. It really isn't as glamorous as it seems. So if you find that you're below a certain body fat percentage and you're not competing, and you start running into these negative health consequences, like having really low mood, low energy, poor training performance, reduced libido, or losing your period for women, then I'd recommend not going below that body fat percentage. Okay, hypertrophy truth number 6 for naturals is that there's no magic formula for training, and this really does apply to everyone. I get a lot of questions in my comments about, Dr. Swole, will this program work for me? Or what do you think about Dorian Yates style training? And I have to say that there really isn't a cookie cutter program that I can give you that will maximize your results from day one. You can start with one of my training templates to get you off the ground, but ultimately you really need to tweak the programming to fit your own needs and find what works best for you. Really think about your body as a laboratory and think about tweaking your progression schemes, volume, reps, and RIR to find what works best. This will require a lot of experimentation over time, and you'll find that things may work differently for different muscle groups. So keep in mind that you will need to individualize your training and that your optimal training needs will change throughout your training career. As a beginner, I was able to add weight every session, but at this point, I may only add 5 pounds a month or even 5 pounds a block for certain exercises. Really try and come at this with a scientific perspective, so don't change too many variables at once, and make sure you give enough time to see the results of the changes that you make. The other thing you can really do to boost your results is to learn as much as you can. If you're watching this video, you've definitely come to the right place. Try and find evidence-based sources of information since there's so much research going on in fitness right now. If you're watching my podcast, Swole Radio, that's great, and you can also check out my books on askdrswole.com if you want to dive deeper. The next point I want to emphasize for you naturals is that you do need to get stronger if you want to get big. And this ties back to my other point of how progressive overload is key for muscle growth. You really need to be getting stronger over time, and while you may not reach powerlifter levels, you should expect to at least get a lot stronger than when you started. For instance, you may not end up getting a 4-plate bench, but you'll see that most of the big natural bodybuilders can at least press quite a bit of weight. I do see this camp on the internet talking about how you really don't need to get stronger to build muscle, that you can build it all with light weights or instability training or some other fad. And while it is true that you can have productive training with light weights, you really should expect to be getting stronger over time. And if you're training for years on end, as I've been telling you to, you should expect to get decently strong eventually. Next truth, number 9. If you want to maximize your results in hypertrophy as a natural, you won't be able to party as hard as some other people. A lot of this comes down to routines and mindset. I absolutely do think that you can have a great social life and go out a few times a week and still be fine. But what happens for a lot of people is that when they go on a bender for the weekend, they skip a few workouts and end up feeling hungover and missing more training and falling off their diet. People might stay up really late, drink a lot of alcohol, which is a lot of calories in itself, and then crush a bunch of McDonald's when they're drunk or high or whatever. A lot of this comes down to moderation. It's when you start binge drinking that you start having problems with being hungover or some of the other indirect effects of alcohol, which are negative for your gains, but also in the fact that a degenerate lifestyle will affect your consistency and your recovery. As I said, you should ideally construct a lifestyle and a workout plan so that you're not missing workouts all the time because of partying, and to make sure also that you're getting enough sleep and recovery. I think sleep is a big underrated player in optimizing hypertrophy. Part of sleep is getting enough, but the other part is actually having a regular sleep schedule. If you stay up all night a couple nights a week, you are going to affect your recovery even if you sleep in the next day. So not to be a party pooper, but just make sure that you take things in moderation if you really want to optimize those gains. Okay guys, my 10th piece of advice for you naturals is that supplements are a small part of the puzzle. And here we're talking about supplements that are actually allowed in natural bodybuilding. One of the big issues with the fitness industry is that a lot of money is made through selling supplements. So when you look at influencer posts and articles online, you'll see that a lot of them are actually built around trying to sell you something. And often this comes in the form of supplements. In reality, supplements really don't play that much into the picture. Your training, diet, and recovery are going to be much bigger players. What ends up happening is that fitness influencers build up their physiques through good training, diet, and recovery, and perhaps performance-enhancing drugs as well. And then once they get there, they secure their brand deals and then start pushing supplements that they might not have even used on the way up. And this applies to even the best natural bodybuilding supplements like creatine. So I really wouldn't spend that much time obsessing over the nitty-gritty little details of supplements. You're much better off spending your time learning about training and nutrition. Question for you guys, if you've built muscle as a natural, what's one harsh truth that you've learned along the way? Let me know in the comments below. To learn about my top 10 muscle building priorities as a natural bodybuilder, check out this video where I walk you through the biggest things that you need to be focusing on if you're just starting on your journey of building muscle. For the best science-based hypertrophy advice, make sure you subscribe to the channel and we'll see you next time.